Hello everyone, welcome to Pixeltest. We are on a mission to upskill 1 million AI scientists and blockchain Web3 engineers. My name is Savyasati and let's get started with Python syntax 2. We are learning Python as it's used in many fields and industries as we have discussed yesterday, and you can grow into the job of your own choice with massive salaries. So Python is the first step. Let's begin. So in today's Python session, we are covering updating variable numbers, types of divisions, multi-line strings, Booleans, and value errors. So yesterday we have covered the first 5 topics. Now let's cover the updating variables. Right. So now let's first head to our collab. Now I'm going to create a new collab. So while it is setting up, let's understand why we need to update variables, like as we have discussed variables yesterday. Now let's just say this is an example. Now there is a variable which says fish in pond is 50, and now catching fish has started. Now there are 50, out of 50, number of fish caught is 10. So now the new number is fish in pond minus number of fish caught, right? So this is how the variable that had 50 earlier now is going to hold 40, right? So this is a very frequent, arithmetic that we keep doing in Python. So like x equal to x minus y or x plus y. So with the same variable, we are going to subtract or add something to it. So for that reason, Python for this own sake has its own shorthand, which works something like this. Let's just say there is a problem statement which is from January to June. The rainfall has been given to us, right? So we have Jan, Feb, and every month's rainfall in numeric has been given. Now annual rainfall has to be calculated. Now let's just say it's June month. So equal to January to June rainfall. So it is sum of all of this. Now let's just say there's 1 month passed and the July rainfall is 1.05. Now, what is the annual rainfall till that particular month? We have to be checking that, right? So how do we do that? So let's first copy this, come here, and let me parallelly connect. In the meanwhile, I'm going to paste it here, name Python syntax 2, right? So we're here, right? Annual rainfall is all there. Now the new annual rainfall is, one way is whatever earlier annual rainfall was there plus July rainfall, right? To understand what happened, let's try to print it. Print annual rainfall. Yes, now we can see that this is the rainfall till July. But now if let's just say we have the whole year passed on, right? So there's other way to do it as well, right? So how do we do that? The shorthand that we want to introduce here is, instead of this, let me comment this. We have learned commenting earlier. Just going to do annual rainfall plus equal to July rainfall, which means add July rainfall to annual rainfall, whatever the earlier number was. Now, if I print it, the number is still the same. So this is the shorthand that we are going to use very often. To understand it in a better way, let's see how we can do it further, right? So now August rainfall is so and so. Let's do it here itself. August rainfall is 4.91. Now August rainfall equal to annual rainfall is plus equal to August underscore rainfall. Now we print it, it will add 4.91 to whatever earlier was there, right? So this is how it works. Now for us, the task is to do the same for all the months. So how do we do that? Now let's do annual rainfall plus equal to, we are going to do September underscore rainfall. Okay, let's print it at every step because this is fundamentals. We need to understand how it is working, right? So now the first, this was there, the September rainfall got added. Now we are going to add to annual rainfall plus equal to October rainfall. We are printing it. Now that got added. Now let's not do it for every month. Now let's do it twice. August rainfall plus equal to November rainfall, and annual rainfall plus equal to December rainfall, right? So now if we print it now, this would be the actual annual rainfall from Jan till December. So this shorthand we are going to use very often. Now if you see here the same way, we can do minus equal to also, let's say, which means from the whatever variable we have, subtract this particular variable, right? So let's run it. So it's going to subtract the variable, the December rainfall, from what November rainfall was, right? So if you see, right? So this is how we use this shorthand notation. So updating variables, the concept behind it, the shorthand we have understood. Now let's see the types of numbers. This is a fairly simple concept, but a very important fundamental. So in Python, we have different types of data types, right? So first is the integer data type. Now we have this is int. So let's just say int1 equal to 9, right? So now when you save a variable, define a variable and give it numeric without any decimals and all, it is saved as a integer. Now the other data type is float data type. Here float is something which is 9.1, right? So now this is how this works. Now whenever we have decimals, that particular variable becomes a float. So instead, how we do it in Java and all, first you need to define a variable and all. In Python, you do not have to do that. If you give a variable, it is automatically assigning the right kind of data type to that, right? So there are two data types, but what happens when you divide integer with a float, right? So let's just say now we do, so let's come here. If we want to define a float, there's another way, right? How do we do that? Let's just say float is 9.1. Even if you put 9 dot, like the decimal point, that particular variable is defined as a float, right? So towards the end, if you add a dot, that variable is considered as a float. So even this will not throw an error, right? So the variable has been defined as float and it has stored 9.0, right? So let us print that. Print float1. See what is going to print it. 9.0. So we have defined it as a float. So this decimal point also helps, yeah. So now let's try doing a product of an integer with a float. So because this is a simple one, I'm just going to print and just show it to you. So what we have done, there are cucumbers which are 10. This is defined as an integer. Price per cucumber is 3.25. Now the total cost would be 10 times 3.25. Now when we print it, it is going to print a float number because we have multiplied an integer with a float. And if the output is also going to be a float, right? So this is two important data types in numbers, right? So now the division that I was talking about. Now let's just say if we are trying to divide an integer with an integer, the quotient is also an integer, right? Which makes sense. Now, what happens if we divide an integer with an integer and the value of the quotient is still, it's going to be 3. Let us try doing that. Say quotient of this, let's remove the space before, okay, and let's say print right? So now it has automatically converted that into a float, right? But if at all you want to force it to say that you want this output to be a float, right? So in that case, what you can do is you can write it in a different way. You can just say float 7 by 2. Now what you're doing here is you're saying convert this 7 into a float and divide it by 2. So as one of the variable is a float, the product will also be the division will also be a float. So this is another way of doing the same thing, because now Python here by itself is understanding that this is going to be a float, outputted float. The other way is you say that this is going to be a float. Now this does not come handy when you are using a numeric, right? So let us see an example of how it works, right? So now let's just say there are 100 cucumbers and there are number of people is 6. Now if we want the output of this, let's say cucumbers 100, number of people is 6. Let's only try looking at float cucumbers per person. Now here float of numeric does not make sense. Now what you have done, this variable, you have converted this into a float and then try to print it. So then try to define it onto this particular variable. Let's try to print it. Print and let's see. Yeah, so now it is 16.66. The number, it's going to be a float number. Now let's try doing it without this. It's still going to be the same, but if at all, just in case if ever you want to convert it to float, you can just go ahead and do that, right? So this function, this method is something that will come handy at times, right? So we have understood how division of integers work and how division of integer with float works, and how we can force a number to be float by using the float method, right? So now multi-line strings, this is also a very very common and useful concept. Now if you see there's a variable and you want to have a multi-line comment or multi-line string, right? So what do you want to do is, instead of defining let's just say multi-line string is multi-line string equal to, now I'm just trying to do double quotes and say plot 10, and I'm just giving a enter and say Hyderabad and say 0. I say India. Okay, so now if you see, I am trying to do it and it's already showing me an error, right? So now how do we write a multi-line string? Now the way to do it is you give three double quotes, right? So when you do that, this works. So now if I am trying to print this multi-line string, I can do that, right? So it got printed, right? So if at all you want to print multi-line strings, this is how you're going to do it, right? Now, the other way, if you're not defining it, if you're not defining a variable and still writing something between three quotes, what it's going to do is just going to show you in this particular format, right? So the best way is always to define it and you use the triple quotes to have multi-line strings, right? So these are very simple concepts, and this booleans, now if you commit booleans, it is nothing but if you want to save if it is green light right now, it is true or false. If it is red light right now, it's true or false, right? So you can always you can save in a variable if it is going to be true or false. Let's just say this is a small task here. Now we have somebody introducing ourselves. Somebody introducing themselves. Let's just say, hi, I am Maria and I live in this particular program and I'm expert Python coder. I am 21-year old and I plan to program cool stuff forever. Now we have to say, now if there's a question, what is the question is age is 12. Is the age 12? What is the name, right? So let me just show that. This is the comment. Now what is the age? Is the age 12? Now we can see that it is not. So either you can say as 0, which means it is false, or you can write false, right? And is the name Maria? Now it is true, that you can write 1, or you can write true, right? So false and true, they translate to 0 or 1, right? Now, sorry, let's remove this, right? So it saved this, and later if you want to know if the age is 12 or not, you'll know that it's true or not, right? Just yeah, so it's false. Sorry, so that was not all caps, it's camel case. Yeah, so now if you see here, we have this question where somebody is introducing themselves, telling that they are 21-year-old and their name is Maria. Now if the variable is the age 12, now we know that it's not, it's 21. So you can pass on false as a you can define it as false, and you can define name is Maria as true, right? Then you can print whatever is needed. So you can use booleans time to time for a lot of things that we are going to do in the further next sessions. Now the value errors. Now what happens if we want to print along with a numeric and a string. Like let's just say we see somebody has defined the age as 13, and we have defined age as 13, and now we want to say I am plus age plus years old, right? Now, if you see here, there's a type error. So this is what we want to cover here. Now, why is this happening? Because this is a string and this is a string, and we are trying to concatenate between that integer. So now it will not be possible directly. So we need to convert this integer to a string. So how do we do that? We use this method called str. So this is going to convert the age into a string. Now it shows I am 13-year-old. So this comes handy. This is how we do. And even if you see string addition, if you put integer, a numeric between double quotes, it becomes a string. So anything that Python comes across between double quotes, it considers as a string. So you can even add to strings that way. So it will not give you the sum, right? So if you go ahead and try this out. Right, so I'm just trying to go to, let us try printing it. String addition. Now you see, you might expect 100 plus 10, which is 110, but that is not how it works. So it is just going to add both of them, right? So you need to be sure that if you want to be numeric, you have it as without the double quotes. Now if this comes as a string addition, right? So now if you can always see that if there is a string now which is holding a numeric, you can always convert it back to float, right? Float or integer by using these methods. If you remember, we have learned about the method. Now let's just try printing this is sir is less string number. See what is going to happen. For now, let's just comment this. Okay. Now, if you see here, the string number, this is a string here because it is between double quotes, and it easily sorry. So it easily got concatenated with another string, right? So now what do we do if we want this to be a number, right? So now we use the float method and convert this variable into a float. Then you can go ahead and print it, right? So this is how this works. Here it's a string and here it's a float, right? So using int on a floating point numeric converts a number to an integer by removing the decimal point and rounding it to the number close towards 0, right? So this is what happens if you try to do a 7.5 and convert it into an integer, is going to be just 7, right? So the challenge here we faced is Now, int cannot convert a string, right? So let's just say if this was a float number, float underscore number, and let's say we're going to convert this to float underscore num and try running it. So it got converted and you lost the decimal, right? So you can convert it from float to integer as well, right? So, if you look at a task, if you multiply a float with a float, you'll get the product as a float. And if you want to print it as a string, you need to use the method str, right? So this kind of summarizes our session. Now, in today's session, we have learned these next set of fundamentals. Now, in the description, you will find a link to the playlist of all the videos on the Python in 10-minute series. And the course snippets and the notes are available in the blog section of pixeltest.com. The link is in the description. You can also find the link to the free Python email course also in the description. If you like this, please drop the top 3 learnings in the comment section and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much.